QRZ, who is calling me, or you're being called by. So, and we hear phone stations get on. So, in fact, the ones that really get to me are the ones I hear on 20 meters. The QRZ, the DX station. They don't even know who they're talking to, but anyway. Just some examples, a few more examples here. Some of these we get. QSL, we talked, Jack talked about QSL card that confirms it. QSL means, can you acknowledge receipt? And QSL period is, I am acknowledging receipt. We hear this sometimes on phone with people using that to say, Roger, I copied everything you said, rather than being a little more formal like a contest exchange, saying I confirm your information, or a message exchange where I'm confirming receipt of the message you sent me. Of course, QTH is another one that we use on phone as well as CW about your location. Anyway, so just some examples there that make Morse operating easier. Here are some not so common Q signals. They're on the list. I've never heard them used on the air. QSD, is my keying defective? Anybody ever heard that one on the air? QTL, what is your true heading? Well, I'm sitting upright. Bearing. There are a lot of these in there. If you go through the list and just look, you'll be amazed. There's really not all that many that are used, but just a bit of the code. We're going here, some of the abbreviations that hams have used. I get a laugh out of it. They've been around a long time, but they're similar to what's used by texters these days. I've got grandchildren that think texters invented abbreviations. Sorry guys, let's go back a ways and look at it. They're absolutely amazed. Of course, they're amazed when any adult knows anything. But here's a few of the common ones. You've seen some of these. Now, I'm not going to hit on many of these. Freak, you hear GUD for good. DE is one that's easy on CW. From dotted it dit is a whole lot shorter than spelling out from. And all. Now note, here's one we don't hear as often as we used to. Lid. That's a poor operator. You hear a lot of them, but you don't hear them referred to as lids. So I guess the best definition of a lid is a turkey ham. It's bad operating practice. There's some language now, but that one is not, I don't hear it as much now anyway as I did years ago. Now, OM is interesting. All male ham operators are old men. You can be 11, you can be 5. If you got your ticket and you're male, you're an old man. Okay? Now we go over here and we got some others. You hear the OP, the op for operator, power, SK for solid key, SRI for sorry, and TNX for thanks, and so forth. And then you got your WX for weather. Note here, we got two here. XYL for wife and YL for young lady. XYL is basically a married young lady. All the ladies are young ladies. There are no old ladies in amateur radio, all young. And the last one there is 807. I know that's confusing to anybody that didn't grow up in the vacuum tube days. The solid state days just don't have it. But here's an 807. The one on the right is a tetrode transmitting tube. The one on the left, the one on the left is a transmitting tube. The one on the right has other functions. But they're both 807, so I guess this is kind of like, being able to say, I'm just going to, a couple of my friends to see an 807 or two, and a wife says, okay. Anyway, one of the abbreviations that's used now. Now, I'm going to tell you a few stories along the way. One of them I didn't list in here, and I meant to pick up early on. This is a homebrew transmitter. Now, I live in Dawson County now, where homebrew is something totally different. But in fact, Dawson County led the nation in corn liquor production for years, I think. This transmitter is a result of my two buddies from high school. Alan and Ron and I were sitting around one day, and we did all kinds of things together, obviously, but we decided to have a cheap transmitter contest. Who can build the cheapest transmitter? Well, they didn't have a chance. Nobody can out-cheap an engineer. And this was my entry into that. It has all kinds of features. It's a 6C4 triode oscillator to a 6L6 tetrode final, crystal control, plug-in coils. The tuning coil here actually is a plug-in unit. I had plug-in coils. This is the 40-meter coil. I have 160 and 80-meter coils as well. And this one, I'm not going to power it. I don't have a dummy load here. This has, like I said, metered plate current. It has a transmit-receive switch, and indicators for transmit and receive, so I could mute a receiver with this. And it had an RF output indicator, a neon bulb. And I built this totally for $5.50. This is back when you could scrounge parts from old TVs and stereos and whatever. So transformer is military surplus. I forgot what I traded for it. I had the tube. Actually, originally it was just a single 6L6. I was putting a little too much current through the crystal, so I put the 6C4 ahead of it to drop the crystal current. And the meter I traded for basically everything except the box. And so I ended up with this. It's good for about between 10 and 15 watts out on 40 meters. I don't remember Alan's entry. Ron's entry was a single 6AQ5 pentode tube, good for about 3 to 5 watts out. So yeah, just no metering, no switching. So anyway, still have that, still works fine. Now, here's one, first story here. You know, hams like to collect QSL cards to confirm. So when you first get on the air, you try to work all states as a start. So you go down the path and you collect the cards to confirm to the skeptic that you really did talk to somebody in East Jung or wherever. Okay, so I'm using a borrowed Globe Scout transmitter, which looks like that. That's the culprit, Globe Scout 65. Okay, 75 watts. Actually, I think it was 65 watts on that one, not 75. Anyway, limited bands and everything. Well, we mentioned the crystals before. The ham bands are harmonically related, so a 7 megahertz crystal will give you output on 14, 21, and 28 megahertz. And so I was using this Globe Scout transmitter I'd borrowed, operating 40 meters. 7.163 was my crystal frequency. And I got an official observer report. These are official observers are volunteers with the ARRL, American Radio Relay League, who monitor hams to find you doing something not quite kosher and warn you of it to keep the ham bands clean and all of that. Well, I got a 579 signal report on the third harmonic of my crystal. Okay, I was operating fine, making good contacts on 40 meters, but you'll note 21.489 is outside the ham band for start, and that was certainly not a novice frequency. Now, the interesting discussion comes in is, was it operator error or was it poor rig design? I mean, Globe Scout didn't have real good harmonic suppression to start with, but if you look at controls here, you don't see these controls much anymore. You've got on the lower right, you've got a toggle switch, then you've got a band switch, then you've got oscillator tune. Well, as it happens, that oscillator tuning range is broad enough in the adjustment that you could tune not only to your desired harmonic, but to unwanted harmonic. So I don't know, did I have the that tune wrong? Or is it just the transmitter's poor design and didn't attenuate the third harmonic well enough? But anyway, my first confirmation of Oregon was an official observer report, not the preferred way. And it gets even worse. I didn't put it in here, but I also got a report when I was operating 21-150 in the 15-meter band. I got a report on the subharmonic at 7.050, which is in the ham band, but not in the novice band. So that's when I decided to return the borrowed transmitter and get out of that one. Now, my first shack, I showed you the transmitter, receiver, and so forth, was in the workshop behind our house, just a little cinder block building out back with a tin roof, heated by a coal stove. And I found that it worked quite well. If you operate CW, the optimum is full break-in. That's where you can hear people calling you between the dots and dashes that you're sending. Well, way to do that at that time, I used a tuned antenna dipole for transmit, and I used the tin roof for receive. A little protection through the key on the receiver front end, and you operating full break-in. And I describe, first thing you get after signal reports in a conversation on the air, a QSO for those that use Q signals on phone, you describe your station. And I didn't realize for the longest that I was describing the station, talking about that and, making comments about how broad the tuning was on that tin roof. And, it was somewhat directional, but it's kind of hard to rotate and all. And then I'd have to tell whoever I was talking to and through the winter months to wait while I put another lump of coal on the fire. And I didn't realize I was confirming everything these guys, particularly from the Northeast, had thought about Southerners having seen Gone with the Wind and Tobacco Road and Beverly Hillbillies and Andy Griffith and all of that. So I quit describing the full station. I just talked about the transmit antenna after that. I was getting enough flack. Okay, my real name is Robin. Now, who knows why my parents gave me that name? Maybe they wanted me to learn to fight early or something. But it's in this country, anyway, it's either masculine or feminine. In England, it's as common as Robert and just as accepted. It's never feminine in England. But I'm like everybody else. You get on the air, you use your first name, and that's okay. Making a lot of contacts, into contact, and have somebody call me from that. And it was great until some guy in Ohio that I had talked to looked me up in the call book, and on his way to Florida decided to give a call. He wanted to go on a date. Now I've got problems, but I do lean towards the female of the species for that kind of companionship and all. So anyway, figured out on Morse you have no voice, you have only your fist. There's nothing to tell anything about gender. So I shortened the name to Rob, and that got rid of that problem. Nobody has called me for a date since then. It's not based on a QSO. Okay, but I noticed my contact rate dropped off, and I don't have people, break in at the end of a QSO to follow along. I don't know. There must be a connection somewhere. Now we've had some discussions in previous meetings about phonetics and why you should use the conventional phonetics. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, and so forth. Okay. Now in fun, Alan and Ron and I gave each other kind of cute phonetics just to, kind of take pokes at each other every now and then. But this is one time when it really worked. The operating field day from K4HYB, which was the Charles E. Newton Club I referenced before, Kilo 4 Hotel Yankee Bravo just doesn't have any kick to it. It doesn't grab anybody's attention. If you're in a pile-up with a bunch of other stations, nobody's going to pick this thing out of there. So some of the guys said, well, let's do it a little different. Let's do Kilo 4 Hotel Yokohama Baker. And that kind of became the accepted way of doing it. And that was a little bit better, but it just still didn't work. And here I was at that time, Joe College, go back there. We've already wowed the newsman that was out for our extra points for getting the word out about what we were doing. He was wowed by the guy in the bucket truck with the fluorescent tube as we were tuning the phasing stubs on our 3 half waves in phase on 40 meters. They're not connected, just held in the hands of the guy looking for nulls and peaks. And anyway, so he's sitting there. I decided, okay, I'm going to make some contacts. And I came up with the phonetics, Kilo 4, hot young body. And man, we were tearing up the bands. We were making contacts one after another, after another, after another, after another, just as fast as we could go. And some of the old timers in the club were a little disenchanted with that, particularly with the newsman sitting there. No telling what he's going to say in his article if he ever writes it up and all that. And this is going on for hours, actually. And then sometime about midnight, we got an answer to our call. And it was from a female voice, Kilo 4, hot young body. This is Whiskey 6, always excite him. And that did it. The old timers, the newsman, everybody. But we were making it, this is one place where the strange phonetics really did work well in making contacts. Okay, also on field day, also with K4HYB, we had an opportunity one year. Now understand the site we used for field day was a farm, and here on the top of the hill was an equipment shed. Next to that was a pecan orchard, so we could string wire antennas and all. So we had pretty good arrangement, but we got an opportunity to use a helium balloon to lift a wire. So we had a 600-foot vertical there and used the irrigation system, which was all cast pipe at that time for return. Good ground. Man, did that thing work. So we're in tent sometime after midnight, and head down, headphones on. Everybody's concentrating on making those contacts. Bring those numbers up. Keep it going. Keep it just really hustling until we got simultaneous flash and thunder. And that instigates panic mode. All of us yanked headphones off, hit power switches, pulled power cables, pulled antenna cables. And believe it or not, 2 of the guys were almost in a physical fight on what to do with the antenna. One guy's running, got a hatchet, cut that wire, get rid of that lightning rod. We're on top of a hill already, and we got 600 feet of wire up there. Cut the thing. And the other guy said, no, helium's too expensive. Do you know what that cost? And so they're arguing. All I said was, hey, do what you want. I'm going to watch from a distance. We'll sort it out later, but I'm watching from a distance. And strange enough, the guy that won the argument reeled in 600 feet of wire in a helium balloon in the midst of a lightning storm without reconfirming anything from previous experiments of similar type. So there are a lot more stories now, but this is just an idea of after you've been around for a while, when it's passed long enough, you can look back and say that was funny. I mean, this lightning rod wasn't funny at all at the time, but all of us have the stories.